We've been conditioned to believe that power comes from taking action, from doing, from making things happen. But there is a deeper power, a quieter, more resilient kind that comes from knowing when to wait, when to be still, when to stop pushing, and instead listen. The world will tell you that waiting is weakness. But in the kingdom, waiting is where warriors are forged. It's where faith is refined. It's where your roots grow deep so you don't collapse under the weight of your own destiny. Trust and surrender are muscles we build in the unseen. You don't wake up one day and suddenly know how to do them. You learn over time through trial and error, through late night prayers and early morning tears, through doors that close without explanation and seasons that stretch longer than your heart thought it could handle. Every time you chose peace over panic, every time you stayed when it would have been easier to run, every time you whispered, God, I don't get this, but I'm still here, you were surrendering. You were saying, I don't need to see the way forward to believe there is one. Surrender teaches you to stop measuring success by what you can see, because sometimes the most powerful breakthroughs happen in the invisible, in the places you don't post about, in the inner rooms of your soul where healing begins and shame is dismantled and identity is rewritten. Divine timing doesn't mean you're late. It means you're being led. It means your steps are ordered. It means the things that look like detours are often divine delays meant to prepare the road ahead or prepare you for it. Because the truth is, if you walked into certain blessings too soon, they would crush you. If you met the right person before you healed, you would sabotage the relationship. If you got the platform before you had the character, you would fall under the weight of the spotlight. So God in His mercy waits and invites you to wait with Him. But waiting doesn't mean inactivity. It means intentionality. It means you focus not on what's missing, but on what's maturing. You nourish your soul. You cultivate your gifts. You clean out your heart. You do the deep internal work that no one claps for, but heaven sees, heaven celebrates, because that's the kind of work that builds unshakable foundations. You begin to realize that surrender isn't about abandoning your dreams. It's about aligning them. Laying them down doesn't mean losing them forever. Sometimes surrender is what activates them. Like a seed buried in the ground, your dream may look dead, but it's actually being planted, and in due time, in divine time, it will break the surface and bloom in ways you couldn't have orchestrated on your own. That's the paradox of surrender. What feels like letting go is often God's way of taking hold. When you finally release your grip, you make room for His hands. And His hands never fumble. His hands never miss. His hands never build something temporary. They craft what's eternal. But you have to trust those hands, even when they lead you through unfamiliar paths. Even when they withhold the thing you thought you needed. Even when you're tempted to settle because waiting feels like a risk. You have to trust that your delay isn't a denial, it's a design. A design so precise that you couldn't replicate it if you tried. A design that weaves your past, your pain, your personality, and your purpose into a plan that's far beyond your comprehension, but not beyond your participation. Surrender invites you to stop striving and start receiving, to stop chasing and start resting, to stop comparing and start becoming. When you surrender, you don't shrink, you rise. Not because you're in control, but because you're aligned with the one who is. And here's something the enemy doesn't want you to know. Your surrender terrifies him, because a surrendered heart can't be manipulated. A surrendered mind isn't ruled by fear. A surrendered soul is a dangerous weapon in the hands of a loving God. When you surrender, you silence the noise. You tune into the higher frequency of divine instruction. You begin to move differently, speak differently, choose differently. Not because everything outside you has changed, but because everything inside you has. That's what divine timing does. It changes you first before it changes your circumstances. It strengthens your discernment so you can recognize what's for you. It sharpens your wisdom so you don't repeat old patterns. It deepens your gratitude so you can steward blessings without entitlement. And most of all, it roots your identity in something unshakable so that no blessing, no breakthrough, no relationship, no recognition can define you. You are already defined. You are already chosen. You are already held. So yes, divine timing requires trust and surrender, but not as a punishment. As a preparation, as a pathway into the kind of life you were born to live, the kind of life that doesn't settle for surface, the kind of life that runs deep with meaning, purpose, and joy, that isn't shaken by what people say or what seasons shift. If you're in a place where it feels like nothing is moving, let me remind you, God does His best work in the dark. Seeds grow in silence. Babies are formed in the womb. Diamonds are forged in pressure. Don't mistake hiddenness for abandonment. Don't confuse delay with denial. Something is happening. And if you can hold on, if you can keep showing up, keep choosing trust, keep surrendering what you can't control, you will see the fruit, and it won't just be what you prayed for, it'll be more. Because that's the kind of God He is. He doesn't just restore, He redeems. He doesn't just answer prayers, He exceeds them. He doesn't just fulfill promises, He enlarges them to fit the version of you that finally believed you were worthy. So breathe deep, let go of the timeline. Release the pressure to figure it all out. Surrender doesn't mean, it means you're beginning to move with the rhythm of grace, with the timing of heaven, with the trust of someone who knows they are held. This isn't the end. This is the alignment. This is where everything that was scattered begins to make sense. The dots begin to connect. The lessons begin to bloom. The ache begins to break. And in that holy space where you've surrendered all, you suddenly realize what God has planned for you isn't behind you. It's not even something you missed. It's already written. Already in motion, already unfolding beneath the surface. All you're doing now is getting ready for it. You're getting stronger, wiser, softer, bolder, and above all, free. You were never forgotten, not for a moment. Even when you couldn't feel Him, God was writing the script. Even when your prayers felt like they were hitting the ceiling, heaven was listening. Even when the doors closed, the right one was being prepared. Even when you cried, why not now? The answer was never no. It was simply not yet. Because when it finally arrives, when the promise shows up, it won't come from your striving. It'll come from your surrender. It'll come with peace, with confirmation, with alignment so deep that your whole body will recognize it before your mind can even comprehend it. You don't need to see the full picture to trust the artist. You don't need to understand the next chapter to know the author is good. Divine timing may not operate on your schedule, but it always arrives right on time. And when it does, it will all make sense. The tears, the waiting, the wondering, it will all be woven into something sacred. Something you'll look back on and say, I wouldn't change a thing because it changed me. So today, choose to trust again. Even if your heart is tired, choose to surrender again, even if your hands are shaking, because the very act of letting go is where miracles begin. There is favor on the other side of your release. There is peace waiting in the pause. There is clarity inside the quiet. God isn't late. You're just early. And this waiting room is not a punishment, it's a sanctuary. A sacred space where your faith gets stronger, your vision gets clearer, and your soul becomes ready for the weight of the answer. Divine timing is never rushed, and it's never wrong, so keep going. Your moment is coming. There's something raw and tender about the season of waiting. It's that space between the promise and the fulfillment, between the prayer and the answer, between the sowing and the harvest. And it's in that space, quiet, undefined, and often uncomfortable, where vulnerability rises to the surface. Not the polished, curated version of vulnerability that looks good on paper, but the messy kind. The kind that stirs up questions. The kind that whispers, what if I'm not enough? Or what if nothing changes? The kind that makes you look at the mirror and ask, how long can I keep holding on? Waiting strips you. It doesn't care about your titles or your achievements or your perfectly arranged schedule. It touches the part of you that longs for certainty, and it asks you to live without it. It stretches the muscle of patience until it trembles, and then it asks for more. It breaks open your heart in ways that no amount of planning could have prepared you for. But here's the beautiful, painful truth. Waiting is sacred, not because it feels good, but because it reveals what you believe when nothing else is working. It reveals where you place your hope. It shows you who you are when the outcome is still unknown. In those seasons, vulnerability becomes more than a buzzword. It becomes your way of breathing. It's waking up each day and choosing to still show up even when the finish line is nowhere in sight. It's choosing to keep loving people, keep giving your best, keep believing even when your heart feels worn thin. Vulnerability is not weakness. It's the willingness to keep your heart open when it would be easier to close it. It's being brave enough to admit I'm scared and yet still choosing to trust. There is a kind of courage in confessing that you don't have it all figured out. A quiet strength in allowing yourself to grieve what hasn't happened yet. To sit with the ache without numbing it. To let the tears fall without brushing them away too quickly. Because pretending doesn't heal you. Pretending only postpones the transformation that's trying to happen inside of you. And transformation often comes disguised as silence, as stillness, as waiting. When you allow yourself to be vulnerable in these seasons, you start to notice things you couldn't see before. The beauty in a slow morning, the way the light shifts through your window at dusk, the way your breath softens when you finally stop running from your own emotions. You start to feel again, not just the pain, but the small sacred joys tucked into ordinary moments. Vulnerability opens the door to gratitude even when life is uncertain. Especially when life is uncertain, waiting teaches you that control is an illusion, that your worth was never meant to be tied to your productivity, that love doesn't have to be earned through doing, it can be received simply by being. And that's the lesson many of us resist the most, because being is vulnerable. Being means facing the thoughts we've buried, the disappointments we've suppressed, the fears we've ignored. But it's in the act of being fully, honestly, and without performance that we discover we are still loved, still worthy, still sane. God doesn't rush the process because He knows what it's doing inside you. He's not looking for your perfection. He's longing for your presence, for the real you, the unfiltered you, the you that cries out in the middle of the night and says, I don't know how to keep doing this. The you that's tired of being strong for everyone else. The you that wonders if maybe you missed it. That's the version He meets in the waiting. And that's the version He gently reminds, you're not alone. And vulnerability in the waiting is saying, I don't know what's next, but I choose to stay soft. It's choosing to remain open to possibility, even when your history has tried to convince you otherwise. It's resisting the urge to harden your heart just to avoid being disappointed again. And yes, it's risky, because loving, hoping, believing, it all makes you vulnerable to heartbreak. But it also makes you available to miracles. We often think we have to be strong to attract blessings, but sometimes it's our brokenness that invites the biggest breakthroughs. It's in our humility, our honesty, our openness that divine encounters are born. You don't have to pretend you're okay to be used by God. In fact, it's usually the opposite. It's your transparency that becomes the platform for transformation. And in those quiet moments when you feel like you're falling apart, maybe you're actually falling into place. Maybe the crumbling of what you thought you needed is making room for what you really need. Maybe the delay isn't a punishment, it's a pause for alignment. And maybe your vulnerability isn't a liability, it's your invitation into deeper intimacy with the one who sees it all and stays. Sometimes we think we need answers, but what we really need is assurance. Assurance that we're held, that we're seen, that our cries don't go unnoticed, that our waiting isn't wasted. Vulnerability doesn't mean you don't have faith. It means your faith is honest. It means you're willing to bring your whole heart to the table, not just the polished parts. It means you're willing to trust that even your doubts can be holy if they lead you closer to truth. Waiting will confront your fears. It will trigger your insecurities. It will make you question your timeline, your value, your identity. But in that questioning, vulnerability gives you the courage to say, even if I don't have the answers, I won't shut down. I won't run. I'll stay. I'll feel. I'll be. That's where healing happens. Not in the avoidance, but in the allowance. Not in the bypassing, but in the being with. Every moment you choose to stay present in the waiting, you are practicing spiritual bravery. You are declaring, I believe something beautiful can come from this. Not because you figured out how, but because you've decided to trust who. And in trusting who, you begin to release the pressure to have everything mapped out. You start to breathe a little deeper. You stop carrying things you were never meant to hold. You realize that rest is not laziness, that gentleness is not weakness, that silence is not absence. It's often the most sacred space of all. Vulnerability also makes room for community. When you stop pretending, others feel safe to do the same. When you let your guard down, you give permission for connection to flow. And in that connection, you find comfort, not because someone has the answers, but because someone is willing to sit with you in the unknown. That is holy ground. That is healing in its purest form, not fixing, but witnessing. Not solving, but being. Your story matters even while it's unfolding. Your waiting is valid even when others don't understand it. And your vulnerability is not a sign that you're weak. It's evidence that you're alive. You are not behind. You are not forgotten. You are not failing because you haven't arrived yet. You're learning. You're growing. You're becoming. And all of that counts. All of that matters. Vulnerability is the language of the soul. It's the way we say, I'm human, and trust that it's enough. It's how we build bridges across our differences, how we soften walls that trauma tried to build, how we stay tender in a world that rewards toughness. Vulnerability is a protest against apathy, a declaration of courage, a promise to ourselves that we won't go numb just to feel safe. And maybe that's the real purpose of waiting, to bring us back to ourselves, to strip away the roles we've performed, to quiet the voices we've internalized, to reveal the unfiltered, unedited version of who we really are, because that version is the one God wants to bless. That version is the one ready to carry the promise, not because they're perfect, but because they're present, available, vulnerable. So if you're in a season of waiting right now and it feels like your heart is exposed and your hope is wearing thin, let this be your reminder. Vulnerability is not your enemy. It's your invitation. Let it lead you into deeper grace. Let it open you to unexpected joy. Let it soften the edges that life has tried to harden. Let it show you that even here, even now, even in the not yet, you are still enough. Stay open, stay tender, stay real. The wait may be long, but the work it's doing in you is eternal. You may not see it yet, but something sacred is being formed in the unseen. Don't numb it, don't rush it, don't despise it. Let it shape you, let it teach you, let it remind you that there is power in being vulnerable, And that power is the very thing that will carry you through. You don't have to have it all together. You don't need to tie it up with a bow. You just need to keep showing up, keep breathing, keep believing that what's meant for you won't miss you, and when it comes, it will find you exactly where you are, real, raw, and ready. And maybe, just maybe, that's the whole point. Your breakthrough has been scheduled with intention, not by accident, not as an afterthought, not because you begged for it long enough or finally became good enough to deserve it. It has always been a part of the plan. That moment when everything aligns, when the fog lifts, when the thing you've prayed for, cried for, doubted would ever come, arrives. It's not a coincidence. It's not random. It's a sacred appointment set by a God who has never been late, even when you felt left behind. There's something both comforting and terrifying about knowing your breakthrough is scheduled. Comforting because it reminds us that there is order in what often feels like chaos. Terrifying because it means we can't manipulate the timeline. We can't force it to come early just because we're tired of waiting. That's where trust comes in. That's where the ache of faith grows roots, because trusting the timing means trusting the one who holds time. We live in a world that idolizes hustle and rewards control. We're taught that if we just work hard enough, strategize well enough, push consistently, and optimize every area of our lives, we can bend reality to our will. But there are some doors that don't open because of effort. They open because of timing. There are seasons where God has you wrapped in what feels like silence, not because He's ignoring you, but because He's preparing the stage for something that has to unfold in the fullness of time. The hardest part isn't usually the waiting, it's what happens to us in the wait. The inner war between hope and despair, the questions that keep us up at night. Did I miss it? Did I mess it up? Did I wait too long? Did I move too soon? And yet, if your breakthrough has been scheduled with intention, then it's not dependent on your perfection. It's anchored in divine grace. That means you can rest, you can exhale, you can stop rehearsing all your regrets and start preparing your heart for the promise. You were never meant to carry the burden of orchestrating your own miracles. That's not your role. Your role is to remain faithful, to keep showing up, to keep becoming, to stay available for the assignment God is forming around you. And let's be honest, becoming takes a toll. When you're being stretched into a version of yourself that can hold what you've been praying for, you will feel the discomfort of transformation. You will feel lonely. You will feel misunderstood. You will question everything you once believed about who you are. And yet all of that is part of the scheduling process. Have you ever noticed that divine breakthroughs rarely arrive in comfort zones? They tend to show up in the rubble, in the aftermath of surrender, when you finally let go of controlling the outcome. Sometimes God waits until we stop trying to force it, until we stop pretending we're not exhausted by carrying things He never asked us to hold. And when we reach that point, not of giving up, but of letting go, something begins to shift. Doors start to open that our striving couldn't pry loose. Connections come that our networking couldn't orchestrate. Peace shows up that makes no sense given the chaos around us. That's when you know this was scheduled, this was set in motion long before you even knew you needed it. And still, in the middle of that divine setup, we get scared. We sabotage, we shrink, we wonder, who am I to receive this? But the real question is, who are you not to? If God scheduled your breakthrough, then He already factored in your flaws, your fears, your failures, and your forgotten dreams. Nothing about your story disqualifies you from what's coming. In fact, the parts you thought would disqualify you, the mistakes, the heartbreak, the detours, those are often the very elements God uses to elevate the testimony. Because breakthrough isn't just about what you get, it's about who you become in the process. And becoming is brutal. Let's not sugarcoat it. There are days you feel like you're unraveling more than you're evolving. But what if that unraveling is part of the plan? What if the things falling apart are actually falling into place? What if you're not being punished by the delay, but protected by it? Some doors remain closed, not because you're not ready to walk through them, but because the room on the other side isn't ready to receive you yet. Timing is everything, and divine timing is sacred. There's a reason so many breakthroughs come after seasons of isolation. When you're alone, there's no applause to validate you. There's no crowd to keep performing for. You have to face yourself. You have to sit in silence long enough to hear your own soul speak. And in that silence, you learn to discern the voice of God, not the voice of culture, not the voice of fear, not even the voice of your own insecurities, but the still, quiet voice that reminds you that you are chosen, loved, and right on time. It's in those quiet, unglamorous moments that the foundation for breakthrough is laid. Every act of obedience, every decision to forgive, every boundary you uphold, every tear you cry in secret, every time you choose integrity over convenience, you are building something eternal. You are aligning yourself with a promise that cannot return void. And though you may not see the evidence yet, something is shifting. Something is aligning. Something is moving in your favor behind the scenes. We love the fireworks of breakthrough, the big moments, the I made it celebrations. But what about the quiet breakthroughs, the ones no one claps for? The day you chose not to numb your pain with distraction. The moment you stood up for yourself, even though your voice shook. The time you dared to dream again after disappointment. Those count too. In fact, they might count more, because those moments are evidence that your character is catching up with your calling. And God cares more about your character than your comfort. That's why He's willing to let you wait. That's why He's willing to let you walk through seasons that feel unfair, lonely, even confusing. He's not withholding your breakthrough. He's safeguarding it. He's waiting until the version of you that shows up to receive it is strong enough not to sabotage it. That version of you is being built right now in the waiting, in the wondering, in the becoming. So what do you do while you wait for what's already been scheduled? You stay faithful to what's in front of you. You keep tending to your soul. You keep showing up in love even when love hasn't shown up for you yet. You trust that your tears are being collected. Your prayers are being heard. Your obedience is being recorded. Nothing is wasted. Nothing is forgotten. Nothing is random. Your breakthrough is not a favor, it's a fulfillment. And when it comes, it won't just restore what you lost, it will redeem it. It will multiply it. It will exceed every anxious thought you had while you waited. But here's the key. It won't look the way you thought it would. Breakthrough rarely does. It will come dressed in humility. It will arrive in the form of peace or a phone call or an opportunity you didn't see coming. It will often look like work before it feels like reward. And it may not make sense to anyone else, but you'll know. Deep in your bones, you'll know this was for me. This was planned for me. This was worth every delay. And you stand in the middle of what you once only dreamed about. May you never forget who you became on the way there. May you carry the lessons, not just the blessings. May you hold the wisdom that was forged in the fire of waiting. May you be kind to the version of yourself that kept showing up even when the finish line felt invisible. Because that version of you, faithful, weary, hopeful, honest, that version is the one God saw when He scheduled your breakthrough. He didn't just see the polished, celebrated you. He saw the hidden you, the one that kept hoping when it would have been easier to quit, the one that chose healing over hiding, the one that stood in the unknown and whispered, "I still believe." That's the one he's showing up for. So keep your heart open. Stay soft. Even when life tries to harden you, keep expecting, keep believing. Not because it's easy, but because your breakthrough has already been written into the story. It's not a question of if, it's only a matter of when. And when that moment arrives, when the light breaks through and the promise meets your preparation, you'll understand why it took the time it did. You'll understand that it was never about rushing the process. It was about becoming someone who could carry the promise with grace, with wisdom, with humility, and with strength. Your breakthrough has been scheduled with intention, and it's coming right on time.